Via West 57th Street, one of Manhattan's newest residence buildings, has a lot of people talking because the form is so different, even inscrutable. But a cursory review of the site reveals how the building responds to the logic of its purpose and setting. It is an edifice that complies with the modernist motto, form ever follows function. Architect Bjarke Ingels had the opportunity to develop an otherwise nondescript rectangular block in New York City. The site, however, does offer views of the Hudson River on the west, even though it is bounded by buildings on the north and the south. The form is described by many as a pyramid, but it is actually an asymptote. It starts from the low point on the southwest corner and curves up to a peak on the northeast corner. But I suppose the word asymptote in a real estate listing is not nearly as exciting as the word pyramid. The curve manifests triangular shapes on the east and north facade, allowing even more apartments views of the Hudson River. And the hollow created by the central green rectangular courtyard exposes even more of the building's surface to the vista. The primary function then is optimizing big money views of the Hudson River for real estate purposes, rather than any sort of economy of construction or maximizing interior space. Ingels describes the building as a hybrid between a European low-rise residential block on the southwest corner and a high-rise Manhattan residential tower on the northeast corner. He says this is an appropriate mix since America developed the surf and turf platter, that is, plopping a lobster on top of a slab of steak. This is an appropriate analogy. Depending upon where you are around the building, you get a completely different experience. And the building is massive when compared with a European residential block. It's 1 million square feet and reaches 460 feet tall. But since it is mostly seen from the unobstructed expanse of the Joe DiMaggio Highway, pronounced West Side Highway, it appears to be more open, airy, and inviting than the average blocky Manhattan residential tower. At least this is above the ground level, where the building on the west facade has a solid wall blocking out the highway noise as much as possible. The form of the building is aided by the fact that the buildings immediately to the south also step up the further they get away from the Hudson River. Often, unusual style in architecture is a form of branding, building strange to bring attention to the architect. The Bjarke Ingels group, BIG, has projects that are almost universally striving for unusual form, but it is not always the same form. It appears that there is a different rational basis for these shapes, and that is the soul of modernism. Economy, however, is not one of the rational forces behind these forms. They might have gotten away from the Mies van der Rohe glass box to avoid monotony, but BIG has also avoided the branded style which plagues so many starchitects. By the way, I have often wondered if an architect's name isn't the best form of branding. I mean, Bjarke Ingels just sounds so avant-garde enough to exude architectural talent, at least outside of Denmark. For all I know, in Denmark, his name might be the Danish equivalent of John Smith. The fact that he gets to call his firm Bjarke Ingels Group, BIG, also is useful. He frequently describes his approach to architecture as bigamy, adding two things together that don't normally go together, such as his Copenhagen project, the Amager Bakke waste-to-energy plant, which is also a ski slope. Adding sexual innuendo to your firm's branding by using words like bigamy doesn't hurt either. Architects used to go for 3 names or 2 letters and a name in order to market themselves. People like Frank Lloyd Wright or H.H. Richardson or I.M. Pei. But the 3 names was also used by political assassins, so maybe that's not the best idea. I think the best name in architecture today is Rem Koolhaas, the Dutch architect, and maybe his name is not pronounced that way, but I think having a last name such as Koolhaas is just brilliant. I thought my Italian last name might be an advantage when I was marketing my firm. I even came up with the slogan, Architect Michael Molinelli, because Michelangelo is dead. Perhaps marketing is not one of my strengths. With regard to marketing, I think that Via West 57th Street is missing an opportunity by not branding with some sort of unusual name like the Asymptote or the Sloppy Pyramid. But as I noted, branding and marketing may not be a strength of mine. Using the word via, the Latin word for way, doesn't make much sense, and it makes even less sense when they replace the A with an upward pointing caret. Still, it is kind of telling that most of the new residential projects going up in Manhattan have an address as their branded name. 432 Park Avenue, 111 West 57th Street, 1 Vanderbilt Avenue. Context is ever changing in New York City, so the way this building responds to its immediate environment may be its undoing in the future should things change. For example, its openness may be constricted should they replace the buildings on the north and south with big boxy slabs. There are vague statements in New York City zoning regulations that talk about preserving views, but that will just keep the lawyers busy for decades fighting it in the courts. Still, Via West 57th Street got there first, and it has given New York a contextual building that shows that both creativity and improvement can go together, such as lobster and steak. I'm Michael Molinelli, and this is Architecture Codex.